Welcome, ladies and gents. My name is Rick Curci, and I'm gonna tear into this game. I know the title of this video is probably not gonna get positively received, but the fact of the matter is that when it comes to all the games that I played this year, Rainbow Six Siege was the worst experience that I had. I found myself not having fun more often than I found myself actually having fun. And when it comes to video games, that's not a good thing. You should be having fun and enjoying yourself. So Rainbow Six Siege, when I started it up, I knew I had to get into the rhythm of playing. It wasn't gonna be played like a standard shooter. It wasn't gonna get played like a Call of Duty. It was going to be a little bit different. Luckily, the game had these things known as situations. It basically threw you into a scenario to get you into the rhythm of how the game should be played, but it also served as a place where you could try out certain characters, where it showed you how Glass is played, or it shows you how IQ is played. It teaches you that you have to keep an eye out for certain things, like you got to keep an eye out for nitro cells, you got to keep an eye out for bombers. You have to move slowly and methodically as an attacker. As a defender, you have to be aware of your surroundings. The situations were good, and a lot of times I did have a lot of fun playing them. But the problem is that this game has no story, so the situations aren't connected by any sort of overreaching plot. And I'm not joking when I say there's no story. There is no story. It's not like a Destiny thing where I say there is a narrative, but there really isn't. There is no story in this game. There isn't one. You could argue, yes, there is a narrative, but I see it more as a setting. It's setting the tone. It's letting you know these guys are the Rainbow Six team. This is what they're hired to do. They're basically an anti-terrorist force. And the situations boil down to glorified tutorials. See, beyond the situations mode, there is terrorist hunt or tarot hunt. I like how the developers, when they were talking about the game before it released, were like, this is what the community refers to this game mode as, so we are going to adopt it into our game. And then the community was like, no, please don't do that. Please don't call it that. And then they just dropped it altogether. Terrorist Hunt is a fun game mode. You could be an attacker and you're basically going into an area and eliminating all the enemies. But you can also be a defender where you're put into a location and you're asked, set up, there are going to be waves coming your way. Be prepared. And just like what you found in the situations mode, you have to keep an eye out for nitro cells, you have to keep an eye out for traps, you have to keep an eye out for bombers. So it gives this game a little bit of a dynamic, and when you're playing that, you're thinking to yourself, this is actually pretty fun. Especially when you're coordinating with your allies, when you're going through an area and you're saying, okay, check your corner, oh, hey, there's a couple of guys in there, watch your six. Terminology, really super immersive. Some of that carries into the headlining game mode of this game, the Siege game mode, or the multiplayer. Because this game is an online-only game, or at least it's built around this online-only system. Yeah, you could play situations by yourself. Yeah, you could play Terrorist Hunt by yourself, but really, the reason why you bought this game is to play the Siege mode, and that is always online. It's the same thing that a lot of people criticize Titanfall, Evolve, and Battlefront for doing, for being an online-only game and having little to nothing else other than that. Rainbow Six Siege is the worst offender of that, because here's the problem. At least Titanfall had different game modes that switched things up. At least Evolve had some different variety of what you were doing. They weren't a whole lot, but there was a little bit of meat on the bone. It was still a relatively skinny game, but there was still some substance. It's not like Battlefront that gives you like so many different options and so many different game modes. Rainbow Six Siege has 2 game modes, because you would often forget about the situations. I know a lot of people are saying like, yeah, I played it. Once I figured out a rhythm for the game, I just stopped. So you're either playing Siege or you're playing Terrorist Hunt. In Siege, there are 2 teams. There's attackers and there are defenders. Defenders are given an objective that they have to fortify around, and they have to hold out against the attacking team. There are 3 different ways the game can end. If the timer runs out, the defenders automatically win, assuming the objective isn't being contested for. Now, if the objective is completed by the attackers, be it the hostage was extracted or a bomb was defused, the attackers will win. Or the third option is that one team eliminates the other team, which is essentially what this game boils down to. Just a team deathmatch. 90% of the time, a game ends because one team was completely eliminated. It's not unheard of, but very rarely is the objective the reason as to why a team won or lost. When it comes to objectives, there are 3 different types of scenarios. There can be hostage, where the defending team is defending a hostage while the attacking team attempts to rescue them and bring them to an extraction point. There's secure the area, where both teams try to secure the area. And then there's bombs. Bombs is a little bit more difficult for the side of the defenders, because they have to defend 2 different bombs in 2 different locations. They're relatively close together, but it still kind of spreads them out a little bit. Now, if the attackers defuse just one of those bombs, the attackers are going to win. Now, each side has certain pieces of equipment that they can use to their advantage. The attackers have these drones that they can use to kind of scout out an area. So say, for example, if I'm an attacker, I see a barricade. I'm not sure what's behind it, and I don't want to punch a hole through it just in case something else is behind it waiting for a hole to open up. So I'm going to throw in my drone, just kind of scout things out. If I see a guy, at least I have a general idea of where he is. I can tag him, but that will only just be a marker saying like that's where he was at the time of the tag. He might have moved. There's a guy in that direction. So if somebody's utilizing their drones correctly, and if as an attacker you're moving slowly like you should, or communicating with your teammates like you should, you can be very effective as an attacker. But as for a defender, there are some other things that you can do. You can reinforce weak walls. This will prevent people from using standard breaching charges to get through that. In order for them to get through that, they would have to use an operator known as Thermite. We'll talk a little bit more about operators in a second. You can also put up barricades and windows and doorways. It just makes your whole area just a little bit more secure. But then as a defender, you kind of have to wait for the attackers to make a move. And this is what I really liked about this game, is just how tense you felt as a defender. You're not sure where the attack is going to come from. You know an attack is imminent. You know the attackers are going to come in at one point. You don't know from where. You don't know with what. You just know that they're on their way. You can utilize the other cameras in the area, but the attackers can shoot them and disable them. But it might give you just a little bit of an idea of what's going on outside of the room that you're in. Some defenders like to take up position outside of the room, just basically be a front line of defense. The other thing is the destructible environment. You can create kill holes in walls. So as a defender, let's just say I have this weak wall right here that just didn't get boarded up. I'm going to use my shotgun and blow a hole in it, and then I'm going to look outside it just to kind of get an idea of what's going on. Maybe if I see somebody run by, I can blast them real quick. But the attackers can also blow through that wall or use a sledgehammer and just crash through it. You got to be aware of your surroundings, and that's what this game is so good. And I'm sure this is what the developers wanted when they made this game, is just this tense feeling as a defender, jumpiness as an attacker as you're moving through the hallway really slowly, just trying to peek around corners to kind of figure out, is there a guy over there? Could there be a guy waiting in that corner by the stairwell? That's where the game shows off its brilliance. It gets even more in-depth when you take into consideration the different operators that you can use. There are different operators for each side. You have attacking operators, you have defending operators. I think there's like 22 in total. I could be wrong. But each operator has a specific thing about them that makes them unique. You could have Glaz. Glaz is basically a sniper. He has a sniper rifle, so he's pretty deadly from a distance. We talked about a sledgehammer. There's this guy Sledge, and he has a breaching hammer. So basically, he can just one-hit barricades and weak walls. And it's a really good alternative to using a breaching charge, because breaching charges are loud, and it'll alert the defenders if you're heading toward them with a breaching charge. But breaching charges are pretty good for doing damage to people on the other side of said wall, and also being a very sudden, maybe keep them off their toes. There is strategy involved with this game. But then there's also Thermite. Thermite is a guy that has a breaching charge that can get through reinforced walls. They're not as sudden as a standard breaching charge. It's a little bit telegraphed as it starts cutting through the metal, but still it keeps the defenders off balance. Where they thought they were secure, here comes this Thermite charge. Now on the side of the defenders, you can play as a character known as Rook. Rook is a guy that puts down armor for his teammates, just makes his team harder to kill. You can play as Doc. Doc is a guy that can revive himself if he's incapacitated, or revive some of his allies from a distance. There's Pulse. Pulse is a guy that can read heartbeats through walls, just basically getting an idea of like, okay, I just want to know where the enemy is coming from. There's Bandit, who can put down a battery to electrify like reinforced walls or shields or barbed wire. There are options, and you can purchase additional operators by utilizing the game's currency, which is known as Renown. But depending on what operator you use, can give you an advantage over the enemy team. So say for example, I'm playing as Bandit, and the other team has a Thermite. So if we have reinforced walls and I put down a battery and I electrify those walls, all of a sudden Thermite can't put Thermite charges on that wall because the electricity will just basically destroy the Thermite charge and have that guy wasted. It's an advantage for the defenders. Doc is a nuisance because you really have to, once you down him, you have to make sure that you get him quickly, because if not, he's just going to revive himself. Frost is a guy that likes to put down these bear traps or welcome mats. So if people that aren't really paying attention, they just walk through and they get caught by that bear trap, they're not killed instantly, but they're instantly down, or they're incapacitated. And by being incapacitated, you leave yourself open for one of the huge negatives about this game, just how terrible the player base is. See, we came full circle. We were going to get back to the rage at some point. Usually you're going to get players that A, don't communicate, or B, try to get really bossy. So they're just in your headset just giving you these orders, and when you don't listen to them, they just basically berate you. But what's worse? What is by far the defining reason why I think this game was the worst experience that I had was the team killing. If you do not reach the standards that certain people have set for you, they will deem you unworthy of life. 3 times I have been killed by my teammates. Granted, one time I did legitimately make a mistake. As playing as Bandit for the first time, I put down a battery, unaware, because for whatever reason, the developer thought it was a good idea to have my assets destroy my teammates' assets. I put down my battery just a little too close to my buddy's jamming device, which is just basically to scramble the drones that are trying to find our objective. As a result, my battery destroyed his jammer. So clearly the appropriate response was to pop me in the head, which is exactly what he did. So having been killed by my teammate for what I thought was no reason, and once I had figured it out, I was even more aggravated because I was like, it was an honest mistake. You're gonna put us more at a disadvantage by killing me than we were if we were without your jammer? But then there was another time I was just putting up a reinforced wall, and out of nowhere I hear and I turn around and there's a guy on the ground. He's hurt, he's incapacitated. So I'm like, okay, listen, this is not unheard of. Sometimes you accidentally shoot, somebody walks in front of you. Like, I have accidentally killed teammates because they walked in front of my gun. So I started thinking to myself, okay, we're cool. I'm gonna pick him up and we're not gonna have a problem. So I go to revive and this guy comes over and just goes, boom, right in the head. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. If I'm put in a situation in a video game where I can be killed by my teammates if my teammates deem that I am not worthy of life because I'm not performing to their standards, why I have to sit there and watch as one of my teammates basically executes another teammate? That is not a fun game. This is not good. I'll be the first to admit that I'm not the best at this game. I'm actually pretty terrible. There are times where I have fun. If I'm playing with friends and we are communicating and we are playing the way that we should and we're not killing each other, those times are fun. But there are rounds where I play in a game and I get killed immediately, whether if it was just because one guy was set up really well and he just got the jump on me, or I just made a stupid mistake and just walked into a hallway without checking the corners properly. Either way, by dying really quickly, I now have to wait for the next round to start before I can continue playing. Long story short, more often than not, I'm watching somebody play the game more than I am actually playing the game. And the easy answer for this is that, Rick, just get better at the game. Just keep playing it. Play in ranked. That was the other thing too, is that my buddy who plays this game a lot says that everything gets better in ranked. Everybody's a better player. You'll have a better time in ranked. I don't see how that is going to change my experience, because what I see when I look at ranked, those are the more hardcore players. Those are the guys that have gotten to this point, that have experienced it. They're better than me, and they're a lot more hardcore than me. They're gonna be more upset with me if I do not perform properly, which means in this game, there's more of a threat of somebody either kicking me out of the game because there is a vote to kick system, and I have been kicked out of games for no reason, or I get shot in the head by a teammate. There is brilliance in this game. The moment where you're really tense as a defender or you're really jumpy as an attacker, those moments are awesome. When you're communicating with friends and you're playing the game the way you should, those moments are awesome. Problem is, usually that doesn't happen. Anyway, if you like the video, just go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, because both of those things really help out a lot and I would really appreciate it. If you want to see another video just like this one, go ahead and click this link right here. Or if you want to see more awesome cool stuff, go ahead and check out some of the links in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.